At dinner, my brother snapped, "Your son doesn't belong here. He's not one of us." His wife said, "Then maybe you both should leave." I stood up calmly and said, "We will. And my bank card too." Her eyes went wide. "What do you mean?" I smiled and said, "He stabbed his fork into a steak I paid for and said it like he was talking about the weather. Your son doesn't belong here. He's not one of us." No build-up. No warning. Just dropped it in the middle of the conversation like a knife to the table. And for a few seconds no one moved. Eli sat across from him. 14 years old. Top of his class. Polite, soft-spoken, works twice as hard just to be accepted. His hands were folded in his lap. He didn't look up. I did. Straight at my brother. I asked if he wanted to repeat it. He looked me dead in the face and said it again. "He's adopted. He's not blood. You can pretend all you want, but he's not family." And then his wife, Chelsea, smug as ever, glass of white wine in her hand, just nodded. Like he'd said something brave. "Then maybe you both should leave," she said. So I stood up. Quietly. No yelling. No scene. I picked up my purse, looked them both in the eyes and said, "We will. And my bank card too." She squinted at me like I'd switched languages. "What do you mean?" "I mean the dinners. The monthly transfers. Your credit cards, your lease, your utilities, the godforsaken Peloton you've used twice. The loan I co-signed because your credit was garbage. The money I gave Mom to secretly pass on to you when you were broke again and too proud to ask." I paused long enough to let it sink in. All gone. As of now. We walked out before they could say a word. Not a word to Eli. Not an apology. Not even a goodbye. They thought I was bluffing. They thought I'd come back. I always had. But here's what they didn't know. I'd been funding their lives for years because I felt guilty. Our parents died young. I took over the family business and I let them believe it was still a shared legacy. Even though I built it, grew it, breathed it back to life when it was dead on arrival. My brother Aaron hadn't worked a real job in 5 years. Chelsea hadn't worked at all since the wedding. They floated through life like passengers on a yacht I was captaining blindfolded. That dinner ended a lot more than a meal. By Monday morning their cards were frozen. I revoked his access to the company systems. I changed every password. My lawyer sent over paperwork to formally separate any shared assets. There weren't many. They didn't own much. They just used mine. By Wednesday, Chelsea was posting cryptic things on Facebook about betrayal and snakes in the grass. My mom texted me a long paragraph about how family isn't just about money, and how I shouldn't overreact. I didn't reply, but none of them had any idea what was coming next, because this wasn't just about cutting them off. This was about finally making them face the reality I'd been shielding them from for years. And I had receipts. By Friday, Chelsea was outside my office. Unannounced, of course. She never respected boundaries. She showed up in oversized sunglasses like that would hide the fact she'd been crying. I didn't invite her in. I just stood in the doorway. She asked me what kind of person abandons their own family. I asked her what kind of person tells a kid he's not family just because he was adopted. He tried to spin it. Said emotions were high. Aaron didn't mean it, they were just frustrated. I asked if she was frustrated when she told us to leave. She didn't answer. Then she demanded we talk like adults. That's always what she says when she wants to manipulate someone quietly. I handed her a folder. She didn't take it at first, just stared at it like it might explode. When she opened it, I watched her face fall. Bank statements. Wire transfers. Bills with her and Aaron's names on them. Every cent I'd ever paid on their behalf. 3 years of financial dependency printed out and stapled. She looked up and I said one thing. "Sign this or I take it all public." It was a simple agreement. They walk away from any claim to the business. They stop telling people they have ownership. They shut up about family inheritance and equal shares. In return, I don't drag every embarrassing detail into court or make it part of public record. She didn't sign. She stormed off. That weekend, Aaron sent me a furious voice message. Called me cold, fake, said I had no right to weaponize money against family. Funny considering they never called it weaponizing when they used it. On Sunday, I got a notification from one of the business accounts. Attempted login from an old admin profile. One I told Aaron to stop using 2 years ago. He was trying to access payroll. I called my head of IT. We locked everything down. Changed security protocols. Turned over the login attempt to legal. Monday morning, a local reporter reached out. Said they got an anonymous tip that I was stealing money from the business and funneling it into personal projects. Luxury vacations, private school tuition, fake charities. All provably false. But I knew exactly who sent it. What they didn't realize is that I document everything. Every email, every transfer, every change in access and permission logs. They wanted a war, they picked the wrong person to provoke. That afternoon I filed an official cease and desist. Sent it to both their emails. I gave them 48 hours to retract the anonymous tips or I'd sue for defamation. Chelsea responded with a single line. "You're going to regret this." And that's when I realized something important. They weren't just panicking. They were planning something. The threats didn't scare me. Not at first. Chelsea was dramatic, always had been. Aaron liked to act like he was the victim in every situation. But something about her message stuck with me. "You're going to regret this." It didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a promise. Tuesday night I stayed late at the office. I'd been working with the lawyer to finalize new ownership filings. I was the sole owner now officially. No more shared anything. Everything in my name where it belonged. I left a little after 10. The parking lot was empty except for my car and the night janitors. I drove home, parked in the garage, locked everything up like I always did. At 2:43 a.m. I woke up to sirens. I ran to the window and for a few seconds I couldn't even process what I was seeing. My car, parked outside on the street because Eli had left his bike in the garage, was on fire. Not smoking. Not damaged. Fully engulfed. The flames lit up the front yard. Eli came running into my room half-dressed, confused and scared. We stood at the front door, staring at it through the glass until the fire department got there. The police asked if I had any enemies. I didn't even have to think. 2 days later it was confirmed. Arson. Accelerant traces on the grass. It wasn't electrical. It wasn't mechanical failure. Someone had set it on fire. Deliberately. And I knew exactly who. The problem was I couldn't prove it. Aaron had an alibi, he was logged into an online game with friends at the time. Chelsea had posted a selfie from their backyard at midnight, holding a wine glass, time-stamped. But I didn't believe either of them. They were getting desperate. Their finances were drying up. They had no safety net. And they hated the fact that I'd pulled away completely, that I was fine without them. I didn't respond publicly. But I did install cameras. Round my house. Round my office. I hired a security company to do a sweep of both properties. I changed my routine. Moved some things out of reach. I wasn't scared exactly, but I wasn't about to be caught off guard again. Then late Thursday night I got a message from a name I didn't recognize. Just a single photo. It was my office. Taken from outside. The lights were off, the windows dark. But there was a figure standing near the back door. You couldn't see a face, just a shadow. I replied immediately. "Who is this?" No answer. I called the number. Disconnected. When I showed it to the security team the next morning, they checked the cameras. There had been motion at 2:17 a.m. Someone had been there. But they never got inside. What I didn't know then was that it wasn't over. Not even close. The fire was a warning. The message was a threat. And the next thing they did would cross a line they couldn't come back from. The next hit came from where I least expected it. It was Eli. Friday afternoon he came home from school quiet. Too quiet. I figured it was just a rough day until he dropped his backpack on the kitchen floor and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. Said it had been slipped into his locker. It was a printed screenshot. A conversation thread. Anonymous usernames, but the topic was unmistakable. Me. Accusations of fraud, abuse of power, stealing the business from her struggling brother, cutting her family off over a petty disagreement, and using adoption to manipulate sympathy. I scanned it, confused for a second, until I realized what I was looking at. It was a fake group chat, designed to look real. A screenshot made to spread. I recognized the phrasing. Chelsea's favorite buzzwords. Her style of writing. The whole thing stank of her. But that wasn't the worst part. At the bottom of the page, someone had scribbled in red pen. "Ask your mom who she really is. She's not the hero she pretends to be." Eli didn't say anything. Just stood there waiting. I told him it was fake. That it was exactly the kind of thing people make when they're cornered. That none of it mattered. But the damage had already started. It wasn't just about scaring me anymore. They wanted to turn my own son against me. Humiliate me. Make him doubt the version of the story I'd spent years protecting him from. That night I didn't sleep. I went through old messages, emails, even group chats from years ago. Looking for patterns. Looking for anything I'd missed. And then I remembered something. Aaron still had access to one thing. One place I'd forgotten to lock down. Our parents' old storage unit. We kept it open mostly out of sentiment. A dusty little place on the edge of town filled with things we never used. Boxes of photos, furniture, a couple of old desktops. I hadn't been there in over a year. Saturday morning I drove out there alone. My key still worked. The lock clicked, the door creaked, and I walked into stale air and forgotten memories. But something was off. One of the boxes was open. Torn actually, like someone had yanked it apart looking for something. Inside were old tax documents. Letters. Our dad's original will. I didn't think much of it at first. But when I pulled out the envelope labeled Business Records, 1998 to 2003, it was empty. Gone. That was the year the business was handed to me after our dad passed. Aaron had always believed it should have been split evenly, but the will had been clear. I was named sole owner because I was already working in it full-time. He was off on a road trip with friends when it happened. He never let it go. And now, somehow, they'd gotten their hands on a copy of the documents. Probably looking for anything they could twist. Probably hoping to find a loophole to claim some ownership. That afternoon I got another email. This time from a lawyer. Aaron and Chelsea were suing me, claiming I'd manipulated our father into changing the will when he was sick. That I'd lied, coerced, and stolen the company out from under my brother's nose. It was a complete lie. But they were willing to drag it all into court. Publicly. Messily. Knowing full well that even if they lost, the fallout would be brutal. They wanted to ruin me. And that's when I made a decision. If they wanted war, they were going to get one. But on my terms. When I finished reading the lawsuit, I didn't call my lawyer. I called my accountant. For the past few years, I'd been doing something Aaron didn't know about. After one of his many failed business ventures, I started documenting every dollar I gave him and Chelsea. Not just for taxes but for protection. Technically, they'd taken money under false pretenses. Claimed it was for job training, housing costs, medical bills. I had emails, texts, even voice messages from Chelsea explaining exactly what the money was for. Most of it went to nonsense. Luxury handbags, concert tickets, some kind of wellness retreat in Arizona where they spent a week drinking green sludge and complaining about how stressful their lives were. So I had my accountant build a full report. Every transfer, every fabricated story. Then I called a second lawyer. Someone who specialized in financial fraud. They wanted to go to court. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to countersue. But that wasn't all. While they were busy trying to smear me, I filed a quiet motion with the county. The building they lived in, it was still under my name. I'd bought it 3 years ago when they were about to be evicted, and let them stay rent-free under an informal agreement. That agreement was now void. I gave them 30 days to leave. They went ballistic. Chelsea posted some long, unhinged rant about bloodlines and ungrateful sisters on Facebook. Aaron sent me a string of texts that didn't even form full sentences. Just pure rage. My mother called again, begging me to just let it go. I didn't answer. Instead, I sent all 3 of them a final message. You had a choice. You made the wrong one. Court it is. And then the real unraveling began. The first surprise came a week later. Chelsea's former friend messaged me on LinkedIn of all places. Said she was sorry for everything, and that Chelsea had been bragging for months that she and Aaron were going to scare me into handing over half the business. Said she'd even hinted at doing something dramatic if I didn't cooperate. The second surprise came from Eli. He told me that someone had tried to talk to him after school again. A man in a black car. Said he had a message from his uncle. That was it. I filed a restraining order the next morning. The hearing was set for 3 weeks out. The lawsuit was moving forward. They were still living in my building, for now, but the eviction date was getting closer. Then just when I thought it couldn't go further, Aaron did something even I didn't see coming. He broke into the office. Middle of the night. Shattered a side window. Tripped the alarm. The police were there in under 4 minutes. He was still inside when they arrived. Said he was retrieving personal property. Said he had a right to be there. They arrested him on the spot. He made bail the next day, but it didn't matter. I had everything I needed now. A documented history of harassment, financial fraud, threats, false accusations, And now, criminal trespass and attempted vandalism. That weekend I updated the lawsuit. The new charge? Intentional sabotage and attempted theft of corporate property. My lawyer called it bulletproof. But I wasn't celebrating yet. Because Aaron still had one last card to play. And he was angry enough now to use it. The last time I saw Aaron in person he looked like someone who'd lost the map. Unshaven, thinner, twitchy. He showed up at my office again, this time during the day, begging for 5 minutes. Security wouldn't let him pass the front desk. He didn't ask to make peace. He asked for a deal. He said if I dropped everything, the lawsuit, the eviction, the restraining order, he'd walk away quietly. No more court. No more drama. He actually said it like he was doing me a favor. I told him there was no deal. He left without another word. 2 nights later my car went up in flames again. Only this time there were cameras. Security caught everything. Aaron walking up in a hoodie, gas can in hand, crouching near the back tire. He didn't even check for cameras. Didn't try to hide his face. Just lit the match and watched it burn. They arrested him the next morning at Chelsea's sister's house, where he'd been hiding. When they brought him in, they added charges for arson, destruction of private property, and violation of a restraining order. Chelsea tried to claim he was having a breakdown, that I pushed him to the edge. Her voice cracked in court. The tears didn't move anyone. Not even the judge. The trial was fast. The evidence, rock solid. The screenshots. The forged group chat. The anonymous tips traced back to her email. The stolen documents from storage. The break-in. The threats. The fire. It all unraveled in court like a bad movie script written by 2 people who thought they were smarter than they were. Aaron was sentenced to 3 years. 2 if he behaved. Chelsea wasn't charged, but she was publicly humiliated. Her name tied to the lawsuit, to the restraining order, to the fake social media campaign. The day they were evicted she tried to live stream it. No one cared. When it was over I didn't celebrate. I went home. Eli was on the couch watching some science documentary. I sat beside him and said it was done. No more court. No more chaos. He didn't say anything right away. Then he said he was proud of me. That part got me. Since then we've been quiet. Just living. No family dinners, no guilt trips, no calls from people who only show up when they want something. The business is mine, fully and legally. I run it my way. Clean. Focused. No more dragging dead weight. Aaron once told me Eli didn't belong. Turns out the only person who never belonged was him.